Welcome back, my fellow Chibits, to another anime review of Log Horizon Season 2. It finally is back. I really missed this series because I love my Log Horizon, and when I saw it on break last week, I was really upset. So, I'm glad to have it back. I really am glad to see this series back in action. Glad to see our characters, glad to see some regression, glad to see all this stuff going down. So let's talk about this episode of Log Horizon. So one thing I want to talk about is the perspective of this episode pretty much shifts over to other characters in this episode. This episode doesn't really focus on our Log Horizon group at all. This episode actually goes to a different perspective, which was very different from the other episodes we have gotten thus far from Log Horizon Season 2. So, with this episode, we get Kanami, the actual Tea Party member as we know from the past. We actually get some characterization, and we actually get some introductions to her character in this episode. And at first impressions of Kanami's character, I'm just gonna say, a lot different than I expected. I expected her to be very smart. Like, I mean, she's not dumb, but I expected her to be, like, kind of on Shiro's level. Honestly, I expected that a lot, but with this episode, we find out that Kanami is technically, like, an airhead, or she just likes fighting and stuff like that. So, I mean, interesting, just very interesting. I mean, I know Shiro was the main, thinker when it came to the Tea Party, but still, I thought she would have been a little bit more, like, of a tactician, pretty much. So, I don't know. We haven't really seen her in a very serious fight yet, so we haven't really got to see her full personality. We haven't even seen her with, Shiro, so we don't know exactly how she would act. But at the moment, a lot different than I expected Kanami to actually be. She has a really cute design. I like her voice actor. Overall, she's a great character. There's nothing wrong with her. Just a lot different than I actually envisioned when I heard about her from the Tea Party. So, besides that, what does this episode do? So, for the most part, this episode felt like a side story or something along the lines of just trying to introduce these characters. Like, Kanami gets her introduction along with these other side characters like the Frog Ninja, Frog Ninja. Like, if anyone doesn't realize the reference to that, I feel bad for him. Does anyone not realize the reference to that dude, the Frog Ninja? At first, I thought it was a strange coincidence. When I saw this episode, I thought it was just a random, strange coincidence. I really did. But then, when I heard the Frog Ninja dude say, "Cowabunga!" and I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm fucking done. I'm done. So when I heard that shit, I'm like, wow, he is a straight up ripoff of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the living fuck am I seeing? Well, why am I seeing a person ripping off Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to say about that. I mean, the design looks kick-ass. I'm not gonna put it down, but, like, what the fuck? Like, why? Of all the references to ninjas you could possibly do, you have to make the fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle reference. It's unique. I had to give props to that. It's a unique reference. I don't think I've ever seen a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reference in an anime. So, yeah, I guess it's unique. I will give props to that. But, the fuck? Like, that threw me off when I saw this in this episode. When I saw a Ninja Turtle, I'm like, it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles' long-lost brother. That's exactly what it is. I'm like, the fuck? Whoa. So, besides that, moving past that, okay, so we have a lot of setup for this dude that was introduced to this episode. Like, he's a cover character of Log Horizon, the actual Elder Tale game. He's actually a cover character. We find out he's actually an NPC, but he is kind of like an adventurer's type power level. So this dude that gets introduced is probably going to have a lot of importance later on down the road when it comes to this series. So, very interesting. The other thing is that he's on the Chinese server, if I understood correctly. So, weird. Very, very weird. Why is this dude on the Chinese server? If I understood the information that was given at the beginning of this episode, he's on the Chinese server, and technically, they're not even on the same server that Shiro and everybody is in Japan. So, pretty much, there's different servers to this game. Like, I mean, MMOs had different servers. It's obvious they do, okay? But I didn't think that there was actually different servers for Log Horizon. And so, when I saw that aspect, I'm like, this changes the playing field quite a bit right here. It really does. It really changes the playing field because, I mean, if there's different servers for different countries, we got to put this in perspective. if, you know, MMOs usually have different servers depending on the country. Japan, America, Canada, Britain, you know, stuff like that. And if there's a Chinese server and a Japan server, that means there might be American servers, there might be German servers, and just different stuff like that. And so, if stuff like this is going on, that means the entire world and the actual real world has been affected by this game. Like, multiple people might have been dragged in. And so, I wonder exactly how real life out in the real world is going on right now. I really do. I'm curious to find out more about that, because if there is other servers, and now we know of a Chinese server, raises a lot of questions. Other things, too, is that how does one really swap between the servers? Like, is the servers mixing together, or, like, how do you go from one server to another server? I mean, we got to see an example of this with that dude that was like the horse in this episode. He kind of transferred through his horse and stuff. Kind of makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, but still, a lot of questions. How do you go from the Chinese server to the Japanese server? Like, the fuck? So, yeah. And then at the end of the episode, it sets up for war. We're gonna have a war going on. Now, really interesting, they say they're gonna have a war in the East, and so I'm looking forward to exactly seeing what is going to happen in next week's episode. But mainly, this episode was nothing but setup. That's exactly what it was. It was a good episode. We have the same opening song, too. They didn't change the opening song, thank God. I love my database. Database! Database! They didn't change that shit, because I love my database. The ending song, I like the ending song. It's good. So, yeah, that's pretty much this episode of Log Horizon. I mean, it was a good episode. It's not bad. Just a lot of setup. A lot of introductions, and a lot of awesome fighting, too. Holy shit, the fighting. So, yeah, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love y'all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.